The scream didn't sound like a horse. It sounded like the land itself breaking open. Tammy Parks felt it in her bones before she heard it. The sharp crack of hooves, the violent thud against ancient wood, the echo rolling across a farm that had been slowly dying for years. The Shenandoah air hung heavy and wet, pressing down on sagging fences and unpaid dreams. Percy Walker's threats still rang in her ears, smooth and poisonous, promising progress while circling her family's land like a vulture. Sonny had always been calm, steady, a rescue with old scars and quiet eyes. But when they reached the great oak at the edge of the property, something inside him shattered. He froze, trembled, then exploded forward, striking the burl with a force that split bark and time itself. Tammy hit the ground hard, breath stolen, the world spinning in green and brown. When she looked up, the oak was bleeding pale wood, and something dark glinted inside. Metal. The silence afterward was unbearable. A deputy arrived as storm clouds bruised the sky. He knelt in the grass, pried the object free, and went still. Inside the corroded box were papers that smelled of oil and decades. A bronze medallion stamped with a horse's head. A name whispered like a ghost, Cinder King. A champion thoroughbred stolen in the 1950s and never found. Until now. The letter trembled in the deputy's hands. It spoke of mercy, of a groom who couldn't let a magnificent animal be killed for insurance money, of hiding him where greed would never look. Tammy's knees weakened when she saw the photograph. The eye, the posture. Sonny. The past had been standing beside her all along. DNA sealed the truth. Sonny was the last living heir of Cinder King's bloodline, and Percy Walker's family name cracked under its own weight. Insurance fraud buried for 70 years dragged into daylight. The foreclosure vanished. The threat stopped. Walker left in silence. The farm breathed again. At dusk, Tammy watched Sonny run the fields. No fear in his stride now, only grace. The oak stood scarred but proud, its secret finally released. History hadn't been lost. It had waited, patiently, for the right moment to come home. The farm was quieter than it had ever been. The kind of quiet that presses against your chest and makes every breath feel borrowed. Tammy Parks stood on her porch at dawn, the sky washed pale with tired light, listening to wind slide through broken fence boards like a sigh. The world felt like it had already decided to move on without her. Bills slept in uneven stacks on the kitchen table. The barn leaned like an old man refusing to lie down. Friends had drifted away, one season at a time. What remained was a single warm presence in the pasture. Sonny, a mahogany stallion with scars in his flanks and patience in his eyes. He followed her shadow because she was the last thing that hadn't given up on him, and he was the last thing she had left. At the far edge of the land stood the oak. Thick, ancient, unmovable. Her grandfather once told her it remembered everything. Tammy believed him now. Some mornings she rested her hand against its bark, feeling the cool roughness, asking nothing. Just standing long enough to feel less alone. That afternoon, the air grew heavy, cicadas screaming as if warning the world. Sonny stopped cold beneath the oak. His body went rigid, breath sharp and wrong. Then he surged forward, striking the trunk with a violence that knocked Tammy to the ground. Wood cracked. Time cracked with it. From the wound in the tree, something dark and metallic breathed its first light in decades. What followed felt unreal. A hidden box. Old papers. A letter written by a man who chose mercy over money, who hid a stolen champion horse to save its life. A family secret buried in wood and silence. And suddenly, Sonny was no longer just a rescue. He was inheritance. Proof that kindness can echo through bloodlines. The truth saved the farm. Ethical breeding rights replaced debt. The land became a sanctuary, not a commodity. Tammy turned away from wealth and toward peace. She repaired fences, not for ownership, but for protection. Sonny stood at the heart of it all, calm and radiant, a quiet greatness that never needed to shout. At sunset, Tammy watched him graze beneath the oak, both of them finally unburdened. What she protected had protected her in return. Legacy, she learned, isn't power. It's compassion that refuses to die. The land went still the moment the silver truck appeared, as if the hills themselves were holding their breath. Gravel cracked under tires, and Tammy Parks felt the familiar knot tighten in her chest, the sound of something being taken before it was gone. Percy Walker's shadow stretched long across her fields. His letters were crisp and final, his words polished like knives. Foreclosure. Seizure. Progress. Tammy read them at night, while the farmhouse creaked and sighed around her. Each sound a reminder that she was running out of time. Only Sunny noticed before she did. The stallion began pacing the fence line at dawn, ears pricked toward the road, body angled like a watchman guarding a border no one else could see. At the far edge of the pasture stood the oak, thick-trunked, scarred, older than names. Sunny lingered there longer each day, staring at the massive burl embedded in its side. He would not graze, would not rest. Tammy felt it too, the sense that something was waiting. The afternoon it broke open, the sky bruised dark and heavy. Sunny's scream cut through the air, raw and wrong. He struck the oak with a fury that shook the ground. Bark shattered, wood split, and from inside the wound, metal caught the light like an eye opening after decades of sleep. What the horse revealed, men had ignored for 70 years. Documents surfaced, names tied to theft, betrayal, and greed. A champion horse stolen for profit, a family secret buried in bark and silence. And Sunny, calm now, unafraid, stood as living proof that truth survives, even when hidden. The courtroom smelled of paper and dust. Walker's confidence dissolved under evidence he couldn't outrun. His family's fraud laid bare. The foreclosure dissolved with it. The land returned to Tammy's hands, not as property, but as responsibility. The farm was placed into trust, protected forever. No bulldozers, no threats, just open fields and long memory. At dusk, Sunny roamed free beneath the oak, his stride easy, his head high. Tammy watched from the porch as light softened the hills. She understood then that courage doesn't always charge forward. Sometimes it stands quietly, waiting to be seen. The land had chosen its keeper.